Hey everybody, here's take 3 of the review of assignment 18. This is the one dealing with the Korean War. Everybody who did this, it's been graded and returned to you guys so you can see my comments. We're going to go a little bit further with the Korean War. I think it's an important topic. Usually we can't spend this much time on it, but again, there's no regions, so why not? And the reason I think it doesn't get as much attention as it deserves is because it gets sandwiched in between two wars that are considered, and maybe they are in the grand scheme of things, so much more significant, and that's World War II and the Vietnam War. And just think about the number of books and stories and movies and documentaries that have been done about World War II and the Vietnam War compared to the Korean War. At the end of the day, war's war. There's still 33,000 plus Americans who lost their lives in this war. Yes, I understand it wasn't as long as the Vietnam War or as controversial. And in World War II, it's an easy story. The big bad evil Nazis versus the good Allies and the Holocaust and all of that. But Korea is significant, and if you didn't think that already, hopefully you'll think that a little bit more by the end of this video. I'm also going to assign this video in addition to another video I found by somebody who does these way better than I do. That'll be Monday's work, right? And again, hopefully you get a little bit of a better understanding or appreciation for it. But just think about it this way, right? There were many, many Americans who were thanking their lucky stars to have made it back from either the Pacific or Germany after World War II had ended, and just so thankful to be home and maybe got married, bought a house, had a kid, and then a couple of years later, Uncle Sam is knocking at the door again. Guess what? We need you to go to this place that you might not have ever heard of called Korea and go fight over there. Right? There were a lot of people who did that, and I think those are some pretty special people who can say I fought in both World War II and Korea. I don't know if there are too many of them left, but they sure as heck deserve some respect, whether they're still with us or not. All right, so I'm going to run through this as fast as I can because it's my third time doing it today, or fourth time actually now, maybe fifth. I'm not sure. One of them turned upside down, literally. So here we go. Part of the other thing I want to talk to you guys about here is answering the question that is asked. You've heard me say that before, and I appreciate it, but some of you guys are doing too much, right? 99% of the time, whatever I'm asking you, you have what you need right there to answer. Use the textbook, use the document I gave you. It's all there. If it's not, I will always say, this is not in the text, this is not in the reading, this is not in the document. You got to go look it up. All right, that'll come up in one of the questions that we're going to look at in a second. All right, so here we go. Let's run through the first couple as fast as we can. All right, first question was, what happened on June 25th, 1950? Okay, that's when the Korean War starts. North Korea invaded South Korea. Again, please proofread a little bit. Some of you just said North Korea invaded. Right now, I know North Korea invaded South Korea, right? But if I'm just reading that, or that's a big state exam, which eventually you will have to take again, I don't know whether you meant North Korea invaded China, North Korea invaded Texas, or North Korea invaded France, right? So please finish the thought. North Korea invaded South Korea. Some of you guys went really in depth and said it was a surprise attack and blah, blah, blah. That's all good, right? But the important part is that North Korea was the aggressor. And we'll come up in another question in a second. What does the UNC stand for? United Nations Command. Again, I think some of you were reading or just trying to bang this out too quickly, and you said United Nations Security Council. Well, that would be UNSC. UNC is United Nations Command. Right? Who was in charge of that? Number 3 was General MacArthur. Okay? He became Commander-in-Chief, Far East Command. Okay? So even though this was a united effort, there were more than a dozen countries involved. We'll get to that question in a second. America was leading the way, and that's why they put the American general in charge. All right? And just a quick note on that, and the whole idea of the United Nations involvement here in the first place. If some of you guys were really thinking about it, and back to when you did your assignment on the United Nations in general, right? You might have been saying, wait a second. In the United Nations, you had this thing called the Security Council that had 5 countries, and each of them had veto power over the big decisions. So even if 170 countries wanted to do something, if one of those Security Council members didn't want to, they could exit out and just say, no, we're not doing it, right? So then if you put that thought together with, wait a second, this is a communist country trying to take over a non-communist country, make them communist, why wouldn't Russia say, nah, you know what, that's fine, let them go. Let North Korea take over South Korea, it's not a big deal. Let's veto this. We don't need to go help the South Koreans. Makes sense, right? Well, why wouldn't they have done that? They couldn't, because they weren't there that day, right? Bad day to be sick from work, right? Or be absent from school. They weren't sick. They weren't absent. They were protesting. They were upset about a totally different situation involving China and our recognition of China, all right? But that was their protest, and they picked a real bad way to protest or a bad day to protest, because if they were there, they could have just said, no, we're not going to go help the South Koreans. North Korea can do whatever they want, and it's a very different story, right? That'll come up in the more professionally done and better video that you'll see on Monday, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about it, but it's just kind of one of those funny things in history, right? If they had chosen a different way to protest or a different day to protest, they probably could have vetoed this, and we're never talking about a Korean War. We're just talking about how North Korea took over South Korea, and again, think how different things would be. Last question before I switch viewpoints or whatever. Describe the degree of success the United Nations forces experienced in the early stages. So early on, how was the UN doing, right? So I think it was Nicole who said, not much. There wasn't much success. They were pretty much getting their butts beat early on. And again, that goes back to the idea, just like in World War II, why were the Germans stomping across Europe? Because they were prepared. The other countries weren't. They knew what they were doing. They were the aggressor, and everybody else is playing defense. It's the same thing here. All right, so the answer there, a very technical term, not much, or they were getting their butts kicked, however you want to say it. Okay, I'm going to pause now and then show you a map. You might have already seen this if you went all the way to the end of the slideshow that I gave you for assignment 17, all right, but if not, I'm going to show it to you now. So hold on one second. Okay, so you have a similar map as this one here on your assignment, and you can see just how bad it was going early on for the United Nations forces. Right, they get their butt kicked right down the peninsula, playing defense. There's some other interesting stories about that you'll hear on the other video on Monday, but they're hanging on by a thread. All right, they're the green, and they are hunkered down in Busan, and it's not looking too good. All right, and in a very daring, some might say foolish attempt or maneuver, right, MacArthur decides to sneak in behind enemy lines at a place called Incheon and come up into enemy territory and attack there. And again, this is a story we could talk about for days and days, but check it out. It worked, right? And they actually pressed on into North Korea and getting very close to China. And they also might be saying, wait a second, I thought this was a war just to keep South Korea free and independent and safe. Why were they pressing into North Korea? Well, that gets into a good question about MacArthur and what he did and shouldn't have done, and his butting heads with President Truman, right? Long story short, eventually MacArthur is going to get fired by the end of this war by Truman. Even though he was a very popular general, Truman decided, I can't have this guy questioning my orders. I am the president, right? The buck stops here. I can't have this guy questioning my orders or not following my orders, as great of a general as he might be, as popular as he might be. Right? And the same thing goes for a coach going against an owner or a general manager or a teacher going against a principal or whatever you might say. Right? MacArthur is actually even talking about using nukes
and pressing the war. Hey, we're here anyway. Let's go take over China. Um, Obviously, that didn't happen, right? List some of the countries. Okay, again, I'm going to pause and just put up that list. Okay, so here are all the other countries involved. Some of you listed like every single one. Some of you only listed one or two. As long as you get the idea that there were a lot of countries involved here, and that's what makes this a unique battle incident in American history or world history, whatever you want to say. That so many countries were joining in this fight. And just think for a second about any argument you've been in when you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 people on your side, or on the other side, I should say, and it's only you, the Soviets, and China on the other side, 17 against 3. Whatever you're talking about, whether it's LeBron versus Michael Jordan, or Babe Ruth versus, that's probably a bad one because who can you compare to Babe Ruth? But the best other baseball player that you might put up there, Barry Bonds, maybe. If 17 are saying one and only 3 are saying the other, and you're one of those 3, you might want to rethink your position. What do you think it meant that it was a seesaw war? Right? Most of you guys got this, and I was a little confused by those of you who didn't. And I said, think about what a seesaw does. Right? What does a seesaw do? It goes back and forth. And if you look back to how this war is going, one side's kicking butt, the other side's kicking butt. Now the other side comes back, and they battle back and forth. I've heard it called the ping pong war, right? Because, again, it's going back and forth. But that's the general idea. How did it end? Just like it started, right? 38th parallel. That's the important thing. That's what I would be telling you if there was still a regions. Know that term, the 38th parallel. That's where they're still split, just as they originally were. 38th parallel. That's the line of latitude. It's still a very heavily armed area, the demilitarized zone. And technically, this war never ended. It's an armistice. All an armistice is, hey, let's stop killing each other. And they exchange some prisoners, and they set up that demilitarized zone, but this is not an end to war. There's no peace treaty. There's no, you won, I lost. Here's some territory, here's some money. You're better than me. This was just, let's stop. And that's in 1953, and it's 2020. Right? So that's a long time that technically this war is still going on, unfortunately. Was it a success? I would say yes. Okay? I'm going to say yes because, again, I love Truman, and this is the first real test. Bring it back to my ugly face for a second. This is the first real test of the Truman Doctrine, right? I say this to you guys. I've said this before. If I say that the next time I see you with a cell phone, I'm taking it away, and then I see it, and I go, oh, come on, Jimenez, just put that away. The rest of you are all going to be like, all right, I can use my cell phone. He'll just tell me to put it away. He ain't really going to take it, right? You got to back up what you say. And I probably did a bad job with that with cell phones, but whatever. We got bigger stuff to worry about now, right? So where there were a lot of countries kind of watching this and seeing, oh, man, what are they going to do? They said they're going to stop the spread of communism. They flew some supplies into Berlin. They did the Marshall Plan thing, but they didn't shoot any bullets or risk any lives, really. So are they really going to back that up and contain communism like they said they would when the stuff hits the fan? And here we showed that we would, right? We risked American lives. We lost, as I said, 33,000 plus American lives, in addition to all the Turkish and other European countries that got involved. So we put our money where our mouth was, and we said, yeah, this was the first true test of the Truman Doctrine of containment, and we showed that we're going to try to stop communism when we can. Part of this is the domino theory, right? The idea that some people might have said, hey, Korea goes down, whatever, it's Korea. Nobody can even find that on a map, as many of you said in your answers. The domino theory is the idea that if Korea goes down, well, Japan is right next to Korea. Maybe they go down next, and then maybe it's the Philippines, and then maybe it's Australia, and then maybe it's Laos and Thailand and Cambodia, and who knows? Now we got Nazis in Canada. I'm sorry, Soviets and communism in Canada. All right. So yes, I do think it's a success. The goal was never to take out the North Koreans and make them non-communist and make them a democracy. Right. That wasn't the goal. Maybe it would have been nice, especially if you're MacArthur, but it wasn't the goal. How did the Korean War demonstrate a significant difference between the United Nations and its predecessor, who came before, the League of Nations? This is the one that upset me, guys, because here you guys all ran to Google and you didn't think about what the question really was, and you typed in, what's the difference between the League of Nations and the United Nations, which is not what the question asked, which is why so many of you wrote this. And if you can't see that, I don't care, because you probably saw it when you Googled it. Right? You were answering a general difference between the League of Nations and the United Nations. And yes, that's true. The difference between the League of Nations and the United Nations began in the circumstance of their creation. So basically you said the League of Nations was created after World War I had ended. The United Nations had been formalized or created as World War II was ending. Totally true, 100% accurate. Great job for you taking the time to go look that up. But you didn't have to. Instead of going and Googling, you just had to think for a second and go, wait a second. Well, the League of Nations was garbage and always scolded the Nazis or the Japanese or whoever for doing whatever they did and said, don't, bad, we don't like that, but never actually did anything about it. The United Nations did. And going forward, maybe it wouldn't do enough partially because Russia gets back involved and starts vetoing a lot of things and whatever. Maybe it should have done more and could have done more and should do more going forward. But the fact is they did do something here. You've never heard about the League of Nations getting involved in a war. That's what you needed. Sometimes use your brain and what you know and trust it, and don't jump straight on the Google and think about what the question is actually asking. All right. Again, I read that from a lot of people. All right. If I don't tell you the answer's not here, you got to go look for it, then go look for it. All right. But if it doesn't say that, you don't have to do that. And you need to go back and just think a little bit more about what you actually have to work with. Okay. So that's it on that part. I'm going to pause again and go to the documents. We're at 17 minutes. I'm going to try to keep this under 30. Really, really try. Okay. So for 9 and 10, it's a similar thing. Okay, they're both examples of propaganda, trying to convince either the Chinese or the North Koreans that they're on the right side of things. This is what countries do. America's doing it too. Some of you have heard it if you've listened to the old-time radio shows. There's a bit of propaganda slipped in there every once in a while. All right. So if you can't see it here, it's not the end of the world. You have it in front of you. All right. So explain the main point. The main point on number 9 is that the Americans are fighting an unjust war. Right. I told the men some historical facts about American invasion of China. Anybody remember America invading China? Not me. I'm pretty sure we didn't do that in the past. And the recent occupation of Taiwan, also something we didn't do. We were victims of American imperialism. Now listen, guys, I will be the first one to admit America has engaged in imperialism. Ask any Hawaiian, any native Hawaiian, how we stole Hawaii from the Queen. I wrote a bunch of papers on it in college. The Philippines, you could argue, Puerto Rico, Guam, all right, but we never imperialized China or Taiwan. That's just not true. So to assist Korea is the same as defending our homeland. Basically saying, look, if we don't help our fellow North Koreans against these terrible, unjust Americans, they're going to take over North Korea, they're going to come to us next, and we'll be falling after that. Here's a key part. Even though the U.S. military had modern weapons, the U.S. troops were fighting an unjust war. Who did the invading here? Was it North Korea? Yes, I think it was. And suffering from low morale. The Americans aren't even very upbeat or happy. They don't even know why they're there. And I'll argue that might have been true in Vietnam, but I don't think you can make a super strong argument for that in Korea. They were short on manpower. Yeah, again, there's like 17 nations here involved. And their support had to come from a great distance. And that part's true, obviously. Our army is dedicated to a just cause. We're in the right, even though they're the ones who invaded. We had the brilliant leadership of Chinese Communist Party and Chairman Mao Zedong. Talk about him after we finish the Cold War. And the full support of our people, the Korean people, the peace-loving, even though they're the ones who invaded, the peace-loving from around the world. Our weapons were not as advanced as the Americans, but we enjoy the numerical advantage. There's more than us. It's our home turf, whatever. Okay, so again, this is all about propaganda and trying to show the Chinese and the North Koreans that the Americans are the bad guys and they should help fight that. Second document 3 is pretty similar, right? This is coming from the Soviet Monitor, all right? Well, what do you think the Soviet Monitor is going to be saying? So what criticisms does the author make about the American actions in Korea? Basically, they're saying that South Korea is going to be our puppet. They're going to be our colony. We're just doing this to make ourselves wealthier, and we don't give a damn what happens to South Korea. Right, so follow along. The United States policy is aimed at making the southern part of a country a colony without rights and a military strategic springboard, basically so we can use South Korea as a base to attack either North Korea or China, whoever, under the cover of a so-called United Nations Commission for Korea. Like, that's just an excuse. America's ruling circles set up a puppet government under the traitor Syngman Rhee, so saying the leader of South Korea is a traitor because he traded away independence for material wealth, saying, yeah, America will do whatever you want, just give us money. The collapse of the national industry, increasing unemployment. Now, right there, some of you said all the stuff about the economy collapsing and the economy is worsening, but you said that's happening while you said increasing employment, going too fast. If you're increasing employment, that's good. Your economy is doing better. So to a bunch of you, I commented, how could the economy be crumbling and worsening if employment is going up? Right? Those two things don't jive. So be a little more careful. We're bloodthirsty terror, and again, it's just going to destroy South Korea. Well, the last question to that said, was this prediction true? And it said, look at the board, and some of you said, I can't see the board. Yeah, no kidding. If you could see the board, what you would see is, God, I wish you were looking at the board sitting in class. Maybe not right now. It's 6:22 on Friday, but you get my idea. Okay, this is a satellite picture at night of the Korean Peninsula, right? And usually this is a very good way of demonstrating industrialization or modernization. Areas that light up more at night tend to be more industrialized and have better standard of living. Maybe that's not always a good thing because of light pollution. That's a different argument, right? But just as far as industrialization, modernization, you can see China is very lit up, all right? One area of North Korea South Korea is very lit up, especially Seoul. Japan looks like, a Christmas tree, right? But North Korea looks like somebody didn't pay the electric bill, or there's been a power outage, right? And what that means is the people living there are just living with a very low standard of living. And whatever the author of document 3 was talking about, how America was going to destroy the Southern Korean economy, it just didn't happen. In fact, the exact opposite happened. Right? This is a great picture for why communism might not be the best system, as good as it sounds on paper. Okay, documents 2, but question 11 was 3 times John. Was this one? All right, this is an important one. Why does Stevens think that Korea was so important for the Cold War? Let's see. Korea is a symbol to the watching world. I said this is exactly what I said a few minutes ago. All the other countries who might not be involved, they're watching. What's America going to do? of the East-West struggle, East Soviet, West America democracy, struggle for influence and power of the and of American sincerity in sponsoring the nationalistic aims of the Asiatic people. Were we sincere? Are we going to back up our word? Are we going to support people who are under the pressure of communist threat trying to come and take them over? Right? Am I going to really take the cell phone away the first time I see it? Or am I just going to go, hey, put that away? Are we going to back up the Truman Doctrine? Are we going to spend American lives and money, not just money, but lives, to contain communism? If we allow Korea to go by default and to fall within the Soviet orbit, another satellite nation, the world will feel that we have lost another round in our match. So think of any team that you support, watching them lose again and go, same old Giants, same old Jets, same old Mets, same old Knicks. Man, New York's been down for a while. And our prestige, our pride, our integrity, and the hopes of all those who place their faith in us will suffer. Right? People are just gonna be disheartened because they think, oh man, this is it. We can't do it. And finally, how is this war different? Because of all these other countries involved. I should like to remark, we are witnessing something quite unique in the enforcement of arms by a collective security, by a world organization. Yes, we've had wars where countries fought together, World War I and World War II and the Napoleonic Wars. But this is the first one where we had a world organization already in place that acted. This is something that never before occurred in the history of the world. It is at least a consolation that we are moving towards the lines of an international police force. And we can act together as humans instead of acting as Americans, Iranians, English, French, Christians, Muslims, Jewish people, whatever it might be. All right, so that's it. We're at 27. Ha! Did it. All right, so this was, again, the fourth try today. I hope I didn't speed through it too fast, but whatever. Hit the rewind. I hope at least I'm not upside down on this one. And that's it. This is not going to be the official assignment until Monday. I'm going to post it right now after I check it to make sure it's not upside down. And that's it. Enjoy your weekend. If you're watching this Monday, hope you enjoyed your weekend. And that's it. I'm going to shut up because I want to keep it under 30 minutes. But those of you who've been working hard, I really appreciate it. Keep up the good work. I know it's not easy right now. Those of you who maybe have not been working that diligently, I'm accepting most stuff late. Please just get it in. Show me a little bit of an effort. I think I can speak for most teachers when I say that. And that's it. All right. Stay healthy. Stay safe. Tell the people that you love them, and we'll see you soon.